Hey, it's Dr. Deal with 5 signs that you may have experienced anticipatory grief. And basically what that is you start grieving while the person is alive. So I received a message from a subscriber who was talking about that their grandfather had been diagnosed with a terminal illness 2 years ago. And they were, when their grandfather died, they didn't understand why they didn't have like high emotions when he passed, and they didn't know why that was. And I responded back with that you experienced anticipatory grief, and that leads me to number 1. You accepted their death when you received that terminal illness diagnosis, and that leads me to number 2. You went through the 5 stages of grief while they were living. You experienced the anger, the denial, the depression, the bargaining, and the acceptance. And that leads me to number 3. As you receive that diagnosis, you start preparing yourself mentally for that day when that person was going to pass away. So, over time you were grieving. And that leads me to number 4 is that you start feeling guilt and shame because you were grieving them while they were still alive. And a lot of people don't realize they start to isolate themselves from that person because they had a terminal illness disease because they don't know what to do. Or it's a form of denial. And that leads me to number 5 is that when the person that dies, you feel guilt and shame because you're wondering, why didn't I feel the high emotions? And this is one reason that you prepared yourself throughout their illness and their sickness, that when that day came, you had already accepted that this was going to happen. Praying for everybody who has experienced this, and if you're struggling with this because you don't know how to feel, please seek a therapist so they can help you process and maneuver through your grief. All right? Praying for everybody who's lost anybody.